What's the dumbest way you've managed to get laid? Story 1. In college at a frat party, I once impressed a girl by being able to speak whatever language she asked me about, pretty much on cue. Now, in reality, I was just mumbling noises in the most generic and stereotypical accents imaginable. No real words, no real sentences. Imagine a lot of grunts and slurred words in the worst possible accent. After about 4 exhibits of my multilingual prowess, she was so swooned that she just said she wanted to go back to her place. She kept talking about going traveling together. Only place we traveled was to Pound Town. Story 2. Some girl I hung out with had an older sister who was a true, majestic 10 out of 10, but 6 years older than me. I would flirt with her all the time, but never even got close. I was a senior in high school, so I kind of expected it. One night I saw her at a club, and she ended up needing a ride home with all of her friends. This was before Uber days. Her house was the closest, so I dropped her off first. About 2 minutes after the last girl was dropped off, she texted me asking if I could come back real quick to kill a giant spider in her house because she was freaked out. I drove back. Now at this point I was sort of hoping she was lying to get me to come over, but she led me to her bedroom and lo and behold, showed me an absolutely giant spider. I killed it, but then threw a Hail Mary and said, if there was one, there's probably more, and joked with her that I should stay so I didn't have to waste gas when the rest came out. She laughed, so did I, and said, "Did it work?" Within 30 seconds, we were having the craziest time of my life. Who would ever think that a giant spider would help somebody get laid? It's like the heavens opened up and dropped a big, ugly spider down at just the right moment, so this girl had an excuse to call the guy back, and the guy had an excuse to stay. Sounds like it was well worth the loss of life of the spider, and I bet all the other spiders were glad that they got down so quickly so that they could survive too. I wonder if they worked the spider kill into their dirty talk, like, "You're such a hunk, the way you squashed that spider." And then again, probably not. Story 3. I had my eyes on a woman at a pub for some time, way out of my league as usual, but she was with a group of guys. When she finally was on her own, I went over and chatted her up. It was just too easy, and before you knew it, we were in a cab headed back to my place. The morning after, she started referring to conversations that we never had, and that's when I realized that she'd mixed me up with the guy who was actually going home with from the club. He was probably just going to the bathroom or something. Story 4. Walked into a friend's dorm room to borrow a bottle opener. Didn't know he had 3 to 4 women in his room at the time. I saw a girl with a pretty fantastic posterior, and I said with 100% confidence and conviction, and I quote, "Wow, you have an amazing figure." I got the bottle opener and left the room, didn't say another word. About 10 minutes later, I hear a knock at my door. The girl said 4 words. "You have a girlfriend?" I said no, and that was it. Story 5. This is not a story about getting myself laid. It's a story of me being a terrible wingman and still managing to get my friend laid. So I was trying to do a buddy a solid and be a good wingman at the bar one night. I was talking to a girl at the bar while we were getting our drinks for our respective tables, and she leaned over to ask me about my friend. Now, you have to understand my friend. He is a big dumb oaf, but he has a heart of gold. He can also be really funny sometimes. I described some of the things he has done, and she kind of rolled her eyes and went back to her table. So I was kind of feeling bad for not really helping a brother out. About an hour later, we crossed paths again, and while we were talking, my buddy came over to see what was taking me so long with the drinks. He was slightly drunk, and when he saw us talking, he walks over and blurts out, "You want to get a pizza and smash?" As he started to walk away, he then says, "What? Don't you like pizza?" I think he was actually talking to me, but the girl found it so funny she had tears streaming down her face and laughed her drink up her nose. They dated for quite some time, actually. This just goes to show that even when you're a big dumb oaf, as this guy puts it, you can still get a girl if you're a funny guy. You don't have to be ripped to the gills or look like Brad Pitt. You just have to make them laugh like Kevin Hart. I think girls like to feel at ease and comfortable with a guy above all things, and everything after that is just a bonus. In the comments, anyone else have a similar experience where your humor went a long way? Story 6. Met a girl, asked her out to dinner, and she agreed. Few nights later, we are out. As we were concluding dinner, I tell her the dessert at this restaurant sucks, but I have some better dessert at my place. I was being sincere, as I had some homemade dessert a co-worker's significant other had made me recently, and it was delicious. Still some of the best fudge brownies I've ever had, and I had some vanilla ice cream to pair with it. We go back, and she asks to use the bathroom. I go to the kitchen to prepare dessert. I soon heard her call my name from the bedroom, and the bedroom was connected to the bathroom by the closet, which I found odd. Walking in, the girl is laying there without clothes and in a position of preparedness, for lack of a better term. And I'm standing there dumbfounded with a big bowl full of brownies and ice cream with 2 spoons. The adult time was great, and the brownies afterward were banging. By far, one of my more eventful evenings. Story 7. My friend texted me saying she got a flat tire and doesn't know how to change one. Asked her where she was, and it was a 10-minute drive from my place, so I headed over to change her tire. She was really good looking, and I never made a move because 19-year-old me believed the whole she's out of my league thing, and she was 2 years older, and we met through mutual friends. Anyways, I told her it's all good, you can drive back home now. She said, no, sit in the car, let's get you cleaned up. Now confused, and I said, it's fine, I can just go back home, it's no biggie. She said, just sit and chill for a bit. Next thing I know, we were making out, and she got on top, and we had the best time ever. Sadly, though, that did ruin the friendship months later, and we just ended. Yeah, it kind of sucks when a friendship dies off like that, but you have to give it a try anyway. You never know what could be if you never give it a shot. Clearly, it was on her mind for a while and used the opportunity of the flat tire to capitalize on the idea. I'm curious if she actually knows how to fix a flat tire herself, or did she just play it dumb for the sake of the hookup? Story 8. So I just picked up my dog from Petco after getting him groomed and ran inside to pay my bill and pick up some dog treats. The girl at the register was clearly having a bad day. We chatted up a bit and she explained that she had just got dumped by a guy over a tattoo. I told her that I was having a crap day too, and if she wanted to give me a call after she was off, I'll buy her a beer. Later that evening, she sent me a text asking if I wanted to see the tattoo that she got dumped over. I said yes, and she then sent me a picture of a pair of wolf paws tattooed on her you-know-what. I just responded, nice. And she then asked if I wanted to see them in person. I just sent her my address, and about 20 minutes later, I had some very awesome adult time. Story 9. My buddy used to try to do this thing at the bar where he would dance his butt into girls in hope that they'd start dancing with him. It never worked even one time. But one time I was standing on the edge of the dance floor, and he was trying to do this thing with a girl, and she grabbed onto me and pulled me into her and whispered in my ear, pretend to be my boyfriend, so that my friend would go away. My friend left and I danced with her all night and then spent the rest of the weekend with her. Story 10. I was 23 and I had invited an old high school friend over to catch up, hang out, hit the bar with. In an effort to keep an amazing and long conversation going, I had switched to soda, so I didn't get over the top drunk and lose the conversation. We laughed, we got deep, and even taught each other our favorite hobbies we had picked up over the years. It's now 4 a.m. and we'd been chatting about everything, and I finally say that I'm tired and we should probably head to bed. I grab her bag and put it in my room and grab a blanket to head over to the couch. She asked if I wanted to sleep in my bed and then insisted that she could take my bed. Then she asked me again over a text now that I'm lying on the couch and says, you sure you don't want to come sleep in your bed? I replied, no, I promise, you're totally okay. I don't mind the couch. To which she walks out with no clothes on and says, take off your pants. We did the deed, and at the time, I was emotionally reckless and tried giving her a kiss when she left the next morning, and she said, no, I just wanted the deed. I don't want a boyfriend. I just got rid of one. Big yikes on that part. Man, this guy was really not getting the hints here. Notice that the girl never offered to sleep on the couch, just kept asking if he wanted to sleep in the bed. And she was already in the bed. Connect the dots, bro. This story is kind of an example where being a little bit overly polite can sometimes be counterproductive when you're dealing with two people in some tension. Somebody needs to make that first move and start the removal of clothing, and this girl took that quite literally. Story 11. In college, a girl I knew was celebrating her birthday at an ice skating rink. She invited me to go, and her boyfriend offered to drive. She introduced me to a new friend of hers, and she and I had to sit next to each other in the back seat of a very small economy car. Now, for the first 30 minutes, she seemed like she didn't care if I lived or died. Now, I was fine with that, but then she suddenly started talking to me. We got to the skating rink, and she was very talkative and flirty. She was very cute, too. One thing led to another, and in less than a week, we were in bed. The first time we finished doing the deed, I asked her, what happened? I didn't think that you were interested in me, and then all of a sudden you were. What changed? She said, remember when we were stuck in the car? You folded your arms, and your left hand under your right arm accidentally touched my left breast, and it felt great. That was it, and I didn't even know it had happened. Story 12. There was a time my job sent a bunch of 19-year-olds to Chicago to work for a week. Me and 3 female coworkers. There are 2 dumb luck ones on this trip as well. The first was meeting a guest and customer who we were working with and asking about a large bandage that she had on her hip. She said it was to cover a fresh tattoo. I made a joke about her youthful appearance and asked if her parents had signed a waiver because she didn't look old enough. She left and then came back with her ID to prove her age to me and said that she was old enough for a tattoo and to do other adult things too. I played dumb and asked what she meant. She asked when I got off work and where I was staying. Then she showed me what she meant. 9 out of 10 adult time. 0.5 out of 10 difficulty. I was originally just trying to make conversation. A few days later, one of the coworkers I'm traveling with texted me in the middle of the night and asked me to come down the hall to her room. Her room shared a wall with another one of her coworkers, her best friend, and she was being very noisy with a guy she had just met at the hotel. So we listen a bit and laugh a bit, have a drink, and then her face goes completely serious and says, "I can't listen to her anymore. Let's drown her out. Let's be louder." 8 out of 10 adult time, negative 2 out of 10 difficulty. What even? Then, as far as dumb stuff I did, I think probably leaving a bar, then texting the bartender that I was locked out of my apartment so she'd invite me over, which worked for some reason. Then, when I get to her house, she tells me to sleep on the couch because her dog sleeps on the bed next to her. So I get to work becoming besties with the dog, and at one point I'm on all fours playing tug-of-war with the dog's rope chew toy. She gets up from the couch and says, "Come on, boy, let's go to bed." And both of us, the pupper and I, look up at her and she points at me and says, "I'm talking to you." 7 out of 10 adult time, 11 out of 10 difficulty, 10 out of 10 puppy play time. Story 13. 2 times related to a job I had in college. I worked for a grocery store when I was 19, and one of the worst tasks was closing down where you had to front all the products. For those who have never worked in a grocery store, that's basically where you're pulling all the products on the shelves to the front. It's as simple as it sounds, but it's just annoying and tedious. Anyway, there was a closing manager who would almost never bother me while doing that, so sometimes when done, I would sneak into the dairy cooler. That was my primary working section midday. One of my coworkers noticed and followed me in there to get away, but after a few minutes talking, I realized that was not what she was there for. We made out for a little bit before going back to my dorm. The second occurrence was when my coworker, who became one of my best friends, and I were stocking the section and complaining about the clean shave policy. Being that we were 19 and 20-year-olds, we had finally gotten some actual thick facial hair, and were having to shave it for the job. This woman, who was at least 20 years my senior and drop-dead gorgeous, taps me on the back. I turned around, and she got a good look at me and says, "I can help you fix that." She gives me her number and says, "Call me after your shift, and we'll talk about ways to help it grow back faster." So I did. She gave me her address, and it was the first time I have ever gotten my face ridden. Nothing says raging teenage hormones like making out in a cold dairy cooler while at work. It's everyone's hot fantasy for sure. It's all fun and games until you get locked in there somehow. This story about the makeout session seems very believable and realistic. However, does anyone else find themselves skeptical of the second story with the drop-dead gorgeous woman? I believe that this guy wanted this to happen, but odds are that it never did. Unless you believe that hot middle-aged women roam grocery stores and randomly pick up 19-year-old guys while they are talking about how they can't really grow facial hair. Yeah, I doubt it. Story 14. My friend introduced me to his friend, who was this hot atmosphere model, the girls who get paid by brands and clubs to go hang out in pools and parties to promote stuff. We never went on a date and our texts were dry. She was clearly not into me. She'd leave me on red for days and then reply out of nowhere because she was bored. She'd make fun of me and be really rude and then ghost me. And then one night she texted me at like 3 a.m. and I had enough. I was acting like her and being obnoxious. I was like, this isn't going to go anywhere, so I'm just going to be a jerk like she was always to me. But for some reason, that did it for her. She came over and we had done it. Like I still have no idea how it ever happened. Story 15. We had our company Christmas party in a skiing region, and somehow our place ended up to be the party chalet, where everybody went after dinner. After the others finally went to their chalets, only us 4 occupants were left. Me, 2 other dudes, and one of our 2 secretaries. There were 3 bedrooms with 2 people each. She complained that my roommate was in her room with her roommate, and she now couldn't go to sleep. So I offered her to let her sleep in my room instead. I think I did so without any ulterior motive, as she wasn't really my type. So we went to bed, talked for a bit, and somehow drunk me decided to lay my arm around her. Asked if she was on birth control, and when she said yes, I banged her. It still turns me on when I think about it, but we never did it again, nor did we talk about it afterwards. Story 16. I was at a party and Truth or Dare started. My first dare was flash my you-know-what, no big deal. It got back to the guy who dared me and told him to flash his junk. He wouldn't do it, and he got kicked out of the game, all pissy about it too. So then it got back to me again, and this time, the dare was to run across campus in my tennis shoes. Only my tennis shoes. They told me I didn't have to do it, but half-intoxicated me was determined. So we designated a pickup spot in the other side of campus. I put my clothes in the van that was coming to get me, and off I go. Now it's around 11 or so at night, so there aren't many people on campus, but I still heard a few catcalls and whistles as I'm running. One person tried to chase me, but I ran cross-country in high school, so I left him behind pretty quickly. And I should mention that it's like 35 degrees outside. So I get to the pickup point near a bus stop at one of the classroom buildings. There is a person in a long trench coat sitting at the bus stop. So the van shows, I walk towards it, and the guy, who I got kicked from the game earlier, leans out of the window and says, "Enjoy your walk," and drives away. And I'm standing there in the middle of the road and turn around and look at the guy at the bus stop. He says, "Nice night for a walk, huh?" Long story short, him and I show back up at the house with his long trench coat on, and the van is locked. The jerk won't unlock it either. So my new friend breaks a window, and I get my stuff and we run into the night. I went with him back to his dorm room, and this was on Friday night, and I didn't leave his room until Sunday. We dated for about 6 months. That game of Truth or Dare really escalated quickly. From a simple private flash during the game to a very public streaking across campus, they really take their game seriously there. What are the odds that there was just a random guy in a trench coat just waiting for this opportunity? When I think of trench coats, I kind of associate it with streaking and flashing already, so that's a little bit weird that it ended up being used for the opposite, in fact. This person better make sure that the trench coat guy isn't a weirdo too, because he was just chilling at a bus stop at 11 p.m. for no reason. Slightly suspicious.